Who's?
I believe we have a couple that were not.
Okay, so let me repeat a little bit about the basics. The first session I talked a little bit about when coaches are working with new athletes who have not jumped before, or you're getting an athlete that you haven't worked with. First thing to determine for jumpers that haven't jumped before is to figure out which foot they jump off, either left or right. Generally speaking, it depends on their throwing arm. Most high jumpers are left-footed and right-handed, and left-handers would jump off of their right foot. However, there's always the exception, such as myself. I'm right-handed and jump off of my right foot, and I learned through years of playing games that I'm more bilateral, and so in basketball I can either shoot left-handed or right-handed, and I think that was one of my tendencies, and led me to jumping off of my right foot. A couple of easy ways to tell is to take the athletes into the basketball court and have them do layups, and just by observation see how high they jump off of one foot or the other. The other way is just by an interview to ask them, do they jump off of their left or right foot in other events, such as long jump, triple jump, running the hurdles. I had a left lead leg in the hurdles and was a right-footed jumper. So determining the right foot first of all, and then once you do that, get them to over to the high jump pit and get them lined out on how many steps they take. Most high school kids, junior high kids won't necessarily remember how many steps they use, and I begin anyone who doesn't have a preference already, I ask them to use 8 steps. Now, some jumpers will use odd number of steps. Generally speaking, at the elite level, most coaches recommend using even number, and the reason is because at your start, you push off of your power leg or your jumping leg. And so even number generally works, but I've coached kids who medaled at state and they use odd number of steps, and I go with whatever the athlete is comfortable with. I don't think it matters a lot, but for anyone learning, even number of steps is a general rule, general standard of practice. And I'll go into my, I've got a diagram and a map to show you, and let's go ahead and put that up, Lisa, and just as a reference point, yeah, very good, thank you. So this is a map that I created. I'm a retired civil engineer and land surveyor, and so I'm a map guy. But in the middle of the picture, I've drawn what's an ideal takeoff point for any high jumpers. Generally speaking, all high jumpers need to jump and take off inside the standards, between the standards. And so as a general rule, if I'm right-footed, I'm looking at the opposite standard. reaching behind me, that's about how far inside the standard is good for high school kids, so that their body goes over the bar at the middle of the bar, which is the lowest. And they need to be out about wrist length, arm's length away from the bar, so they're not too close and not too far away. Too close, they'll run into the bar and won't have time enough to really get their arch and their position over the bar, and too far away, they're going to be coming down on the bar. Then I've drawn a map here to provide a runway or lanes for the high jumpers. This is for a right-footed high jumper. And what the measurements are is from the inside of the standards at the ends of the bar. So the base of your triangle here is 13.5 feet apart. I determined the 30 and 33 as the radius point. I've got two radii. One's a 21-foot radius for a tight curve, or the right side of the lane, and the outside lane is 29.5 feet. And the beginning of those curves is out 11 feet and out 16 feet. As a general rule, that's where 90% of your high jumpers should have their starting mark. I often work with kids who don't have a coach, or they've had a coach who's not a high jumper, and they start in too close, 8 to 10 feet out from the standard. But you want a little bit flatter curve to be able to have the right pathway crossing across the bar. So this is my system that I've done, and it's been adopted by a lot of other coaches and athletes, and it actually works. So you get two tapes, and you intersect at those radii. For the inside curve, it's out 21.9 and out 23.11. That's the radius point for the 21-foot curve, or the inside lane. And then the distance 30 feet and 33 feet is the radius for the 29.5-foot radius. And so you can chalk those at your practice field. And of course, you can't use this during the meet. You can broom it off if you've got a competition there, but you can either chalk this off, which I like, and I use this to guide the jumper to make sure that they stay in their lane. They don't want to cut the corner and cut across the cord of the inside or the sharper radius, and they don't want to run outside their lane on the 29.5-foot radius and have to make a quick angle point to get to the takeoff point. So this gives them a nice smooth radius and a smooth lane to get to the takeoff point, and at the right angle to get across the bar at the middle of the bar for their maximum height. I developed those distances with over years of practice and trial and error. And this is what I came up with as really a good general pathway to get to the bar. And I'm happy to, yeah, you're welcome. I'm happy to share this, so you can write to us, info@simplotgames.com. And I'm happy to share this map with you. And if you guys have any questions when you try to lay this out, it requires two people in general, your high jumper and yourself, to lay this out, or at least a couple of people if you can two tape it. with 200-foot tapes or 250-foot tapes. So that's what I do to get the jumpers practicing and beginning to feel comfortable running in this pathway. As you have stronger athletes who are faster, and if you've got athletes who are jumping close to 7 feet in high school, they may be outside of that 16-foot distance. My mark at the Olympic Games and at college was out 18.5 feet. And there are some athletes with the longer approaches now that will be outside of that. But for this age group, this is a really good layout and a good path. So the two things that I focus on are the path and the posture. The posture is really a key to be leaning on the curve. When the jumper starts at the beginning of their approach, if they're back 8, 10, 12 strides, they'll use the majority of their strides running on the straight portion, and that's the acceleration stage. And then once they initiate the curve, and not with a strong outside foot curve, outside foot drive off of that foot to head to the takeoff point, you want to get them to lean into that curve so that it's gradual and in control. They need to lean on their curve portion of the approach so that they set themselves up for a somersaulting action on the takeoff, leaning away from the bar and passing over their takeoff foot vertically. That gives them momentum to help them with the rotation over the bar. So a lot of the jumpers that have difficulty with their arching and elevating their hips at their height and then unarching to get their calves and their feet over the bar. A lot of jumpers will have problems with the arch, and a lot of times it'll go back to what they've done in their approach and their pathway to get them there. When we can talk about problem solving, but let's talk a little bit about training too. The optimal elements for the best high jumpers are a combination of speed, power or strength, and flexibility. I did not have an arch that a lot of the most high jumpers use today. I was pretty flat going over the bar, but I had enough power and strength, and I had enough lift to be able to control and elevate my hips so that I could lift my butt over the bar and then start to relax back and unarch. As you unarch and you drop your hips, that's equal in action opposite movement in the air enables your calves and your feet, your heels, to get over the bar. So there is some timing on arching over the bar. And so working on speed, running sprints, accelerations are very important. During the season, when you're in competition, shorten the distances to 50s to 100s. And in the off season, when you're working on strength, you can run longer distances. For example, 200s, 300s, 400s to really build up your strength. But then during this season, it's really refinement and being quick. On the power side, whether your athletes have access to a weight gym or just access to the track facility and your stadium, plyometrics was really a key to developed my optimal my strength. And so my coaches taught me how to do plyometrics or bounding. And so I would go into the basketball court and do bounding first with 2 legs, but mostly 80% of the time I'd be doing single legs, and about 12 to 20 bounds going up and jog back down, switch legs, always stay balanced and work on your power on both legs. You got to have 2 legs to get to the bar, and unless you're competing in Paralympic Games, as Tyson Gunner knows. But always try to stay balanced. In addition, box jumps are pretty standard nowadays, and this will help any of your athletes, with maybe the exception of endurance and distance athletes, but anybody who's running where you need power and fast speed, box drills are really optimal. And so, same thing, you can do 2-legged box drills. We've all seen on YouTube, which is a great resource today to see what kind of training drills there are. I focus primarily on single leg for power and agility, and would focus always starting off my jump leg, but I would also always do my opposite leg. So you can do box drills going forward. You can do forward, down on the ground, and then back. If you're doing 2-legged hops, you can do side to side. That gives you lateral strength and stability. And then high box drills, just jumping down off of the box to the ground and freeze. And so that's kind of an isometric, it's a dynamic jump to an isometric resistance and helps to build up the strength. The only limitation for young athletes is their development of their strength and their power. We were all too weak to jump any higher than we could. So the only thing that's holding you back from improving your performance and your marks is your strength. And you can train year round, enjoy yourself in the off season, play other sports. But honestly, I always felt, that there are some athletes who are training when I'm not, and they're the ones that are going to be tough to compete against. So I'll talk about this in the Q&A and in the end remarks, but it's really being determined and dedicated to a training schedule. So box drills, bounding drills, playing games, always make it fun, but always challenge yourself. Jumping over hurdles is a great drill. And there are both static and dynamic drills that you can do working with hurdles. And then, of course, jumping. And generally speaking, alternate your hard days with an easy day. And so jumping for height or jumping a lot of jumps would be a hard day. A light day is minimal or maximal 5 or 6 jumps, or doing none, and working on your plyometrics, your bounding, and even running your approaches. You can run approaches and get the feel of running into that curve, stand on the curve, maintaining your speed and preparing for a good takeoff. So being in that right posture and feeling comfortable running on the curve is really important. And you don't need to be doing jumps. You can just run approaches and make sure to try to hit your marks. Being in the right place on your takeoff is really, really important. So that's strength training. And then flexibility is really what you do before you start to jump with your warm-ups as well as cool downs. The hardest thing of trying to get athletes to do is remember to cool down, run a couple laps, do some easy sprints, do some stretching on the ground, standing position, all of that. That helps to prepare your body and flush out your system with lactic acid if you've had a hard day, and prepare you for the next day. So how many days a week should we be jumping? In high school, the thing that I've learned is, both with boys and girls, is you guys are jumping typically every week and sometimes 2 times a week. And I from my perspective, even being in the university competing, maximum 3 days a week would be fine, and all you need to do. You can do extra days to do a 4th. You just need to make sure that you've got time to recover from those hard days and really work on fine-tuning and preparing for your competition day. And many high jumpers might be doing other events, running the hurdles, running doing other jumps, horizontals, or other field or running events. And so you got to make sure you got time to fit it in. But 3 days a week is fine. And one of those is probably the meet. Let's see. Rick, I think I'm okay on the diagram. Well, let's put that back up there just in case anybody has any questions on that. So we've talked about during the year, off season is when you work on your base strength and speed. In season is refinedness. It's being more about being quick. But let's move on to problem solving. One of the issues that I see a lot is that the athletes don't quite get their back to the bar, and they're tending to jump longer in their parabolic movement rather than maximize it and going as high and shorter distance as possible. And so one of the drills that I like to do as another addition is to do what I call a reverse layup. A lot of high jumpers will do either volleyball or basketball. But in basketball, one of the things that I learned is to it's like a reverse layup. And so I'll do short approaches, say 4-step approaches, and have a target, whether it's the goal post or we're indoors where the basketball court is, have the jumpers go up and the guys can all generally touch the rim and above. And I want them just to make a 90-degree turn, which means that their back is faced to the bar, and puts them in the position to go in their arch. But I want them to learn to lead with a lead arm, go up vertical, and with that rotation, and then come down and land on the court or out on the apron, so that they stay in control and just make that short 90-degree turn that puts them in position where they're ready to then do a full approach with the flop and get their back turned all the way to the bar. And other than that, there are, there's always different issues to work on and try to problem solve. So Scott asked, let me ask, Rick, can you link to this YouTube that Scott Johnson has posted to see if we can run this and help? Now, let me talk a little bit about when you're filming your jumpers. As a general rule, I need to be looking at the high jumper from behind their takeoff and watching what their path is going to the bar and their vertical takeoff, or whether they're leaning into the bar on their takeoff, whether they get the rotation, and how are they on their arch? Are they not getting into an arch? Are they coming down on the bar? What's going on? So this is not really a good angle. Oh, it's pretty good. Okay, so run that in slow motion, Rick. So good job on the filming. I would actually move a little bit further out away from the bar so we can see his angle going across the bar when you're filming this. Go ahead and run it. Let's see if we can slow it down. So one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. Nice. Run it again, Rick. It looks like he's running a tight curve and might shift out laterally further away from the goalpost to his left. Maybe 3 feet. And not much of a lean on the curve. And so if he's out laterally running a flatter curve, he'll have 4 steps to go in to run in that curve and run on the lean. And so those little refinements can really help. He's got a really good arch, good timing, and so it's, it looked good. Any questions from your perspective, Scott?
Yeah, I think looking at your diagram, the things that we had identified, so he's also about a 14 flat, 110 meter high hurdler. I think we've got him too tight. And I think if we move him out a little bit, that would assist some of those things. So,
yeah, exactly. He's faster than me. I was running the 120 yard highs in the 16s, so I'm slower. But with his speed and strength, he can use a flatter curve and get set up to optimize his speed and his posture on his takeoff. But it's, you know, obviously he's been jumping for a while and good technique, but there's a little bit of refinements to make.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that. Any questions from anybody else? The talking about different drills that we do. Yeah, okay. Plant foot takeoff angle and cues. Really good question. This is really important because a lot of jumpers instinctively know that they need to rotate. They're running on the curve, and on their takeoff, they only need to turn 90 degrees. It's not that much, but they may overemphasize with their foot plant, and your foot plant should always be pointed at the opposite standard or inside of it. And so if once you start going parallel to the bar, or worse, pointing out backwards, what that does is that tends to put the jumper at risk for tearing that connective tissue. And so their foot strike should be on their path. And so this path that I've lined out for you guys, and that most high jumpers will follow, is still, their plant is going between the bar and their landing position, because their momentum on this path is going to take them across the middle of the bar and into the pit. But we've got the angle of the curve ends, and the curve would still be going around the front of the pit, all the way to the other side, if they just kept running in that half circle, full circle, doing a circle drill. And so make sure that the plant takeoff angle is to the inside of that opposite standard, to avoid any accidents or injuries.
4 minutes, Dick. 4 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Rick. We've talked about the different drills, stretching and dynamic drills. I really like doing scissor kicks over the hurdles. You set them at about, depending on the age of the jumpers and boys versus girls, but because you need to make sure that the hurdle height matches the jumpers, and we have short high jumpers. It helps to be taller, but Stefan Holm, who's not 6 feet tall, jumped 7'8" to win a gold medal in Athens, and so your height is never a barrier. It's just whether the person has the ability to get off the ground. But doing hurdle drills and doing scissor kicks laterally, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, and then you can put the hurdles down and do some hurdle hops. I like to do it as part of the warm-up. I like to do some skipping and even a gallop is another skipping drill. And the gallop is a left right pop up and a left right pop up. And it's interesting, some kids don't quite get it, and so it helps with their coordination. And you always do the opposite. So you do a right left gallop, right left, and usually do those for 30 yards, and jog back, doing karaoke, so that you're working with your flexibility. And of course, if you're a hurdler, you're going to do a high knee crossover on your karaoke. I like to do just a relaxed karaoke, and not do the high knee, but those are good to mix in with everything else. Another kind of secret, or not secret, I try to teach it to everybody, but another really good drill is to do barefoot drills. And so I've got a series of barefoot stretches that I do, and it's, mostly it's first start off on your toes, and you go for about 10 yards. And so walking on their toes in the grass, and then walk back normal, and then walking heels on the grass and walk back, and then heel toe. And then you do an inward toes together so that you're pigeon toed, and then toes away so that you're duck toed. And then one kind of clenching the grass with your toes. All of that helps with flexibility. We contact with the ground with our feet. And so it's really important to be as stretched out and flexible as much as possible. So
about a minute and a half, Dick.
Great, thank you. So those are the kind of drills that I like to work with. And like I say, I'm happy to share a training drill with that with you anytime. At the meet, at the competition, it's important to have your fuel with you. Everybody carries a track bag. Make sure you've got water, some fruit. Banana and orange, apple are perfect. When you're at a big meet, either an invitational or at states, it's important to keep the athlete fueled up all during that, during the meet, so they keep their energy up. And yes, Andy, I've got the foot drills, and it's pretty explanatory, but I'll send that to you. Just make a request to info@simplotgames.com, and we'll get that back to you. Anything else? Any other questions?
We're probably getting the cue here pretty quick to leave the chat room. Nope, there it is right there.
And let me ask you, hey, Grant, what year are you?
I'm a freshman in college right now.
Yeah, okay. That's great. And I remember watching